Yeah. Yeah, anyways, Bez Hashem, we're going to start. It's already like a few years that we learned the Parsha of the week. Maybe in the future we should take one book and take the subjects and go through instead of the Parsha, because how much can you just go and explain about the Parsha? But just a couple of things that we're going to study with Hashem next 35, 40 minutes. In this week's Parsha actually talks about a doctor healing people. Could you believe that? Talks about doctors. What it talks about is, let's say if somebody, God forbid, is very abusive and he beats somebody up, he hits someone. So the Torah says, what happens if the guy doesn't, thank God, doesn't pass away. And whatever, after a while, he gets back his health and he goes back to work. So it says, there's certain things you have to pay, for example, for his, the fact that he doesn't go to work, unemployment. Actually, the Torah talks about it. You have to pay for unemployment. If there's any damage, you have to pay for it too. Let's say if God forbid, he cut his hands and he's like maimed. So he has to pay for that also. And then the Torah says, Rapo Yerape, he has to pay for his doctor bills too. Which from that the rabbis know, even if the guy hurt him was the doctor. And he says, hey, what should I pay for your doctor bills? I'm a doctor, I'm going to heal you. He says, no, you I don't trust. I go to a doctor that I trust. So in that case, he has to pay for his doctor bills. From here, the Gemara learns, the Talmud learns, since the Torah says, Rapo Yerape, doctor should pay for his healing, so that shows that a doctor has a permission to heal somebody. All right, that's where the Torah gives the permission. And it's important to know, doctors actually, according to the Torah, they only have the power to heal somebody. They don't have the power to take away his life. There are many times, doctor, there's no hope, pull the plug, or whatever they say, you only have 6 months to live. Right? So it says those are not the permission that God gave the doctor to decide how long you're going to live. His only job is to try to heal. That's what it says, V'rapo Yerape. Now, actually, many times we see that medicine, even doctors, think that it's impossible for somebody to live. But there are many stories that things do happen, that the person actually lives beyond the expectations of the doctors. I'm just going to share a small story with you. There's a story actually with, there was a doctor that used to work in Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. Obviously, Jewish hospital, best doctors are there, no question. Even the terrorists, the doctors are Jewish, because I know the Jewish doctors are the best. Like the anti-Semites, they don't like Jews, but their doctor and their financial advisor has to be Jewish, because they're the best with money and the best doctors. Anyways, so he actually was not religious, and one time during his life, he decides he's going to move to Israel. He's going to join a kollel. A kollel, is a place that people study Torah day and night. Now, obviously, every kollel studies, they're specialists in certain parts of the Torah. I think the door is open. Anyway, so this kollel actually, these are the rabbis that decide. God forbid, is a person, why guys? Wow, all the way from LA. Whoa, he's one of my SMC boys. All the way from LA, wow. Okay. What's the word? I mean, it's an honor or something, thank you. But anyways, so this doctor actually moves and joins those rabbis. These were the rabbis that were specialists if somebody is considered to be like not alive anymore, if you're allowed to pull the plug or not. Because he was a doctor, he joined that kollel, became religious. And whatever, he used to sit with the rabbis, giving his medical advice, what the situation of the person is. So these rabbis, they were actually very perplexed. They asked, you were in one of the best hospitals, what happened? If you decided to become religious, you quit your job, you come and move in Israel. So says, let me tell you the story. I'm going to see actually there are many times that medicine can't really decide. They make mistakes. Again, doctors are God's angels, don't get me wrong. I always say thank God for doctors. They save many, many lives. But again, they only have the permission to heal, not to decide how long you're going to live. So says, I was in a hospital. One time a guy came to me and he had a certain, very, very serious illness. And he had to do a surgery. So he came to me and I told him, listen, if you do the surgery, it's going to be very complicated and very painful. And it's doubtful if he's going to be successful. But even if he's going to be successful, you're going to live only another 6 months. If you don't do it, you're going to live another 3 weeks. It's your decision. You want me to do the procedure or not? So he said, I can't decide. I want to go ask my rabbi. Now, his rabbi wasn't the regular rabbi. I don't know if you have heard of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. He passed away in 1986. He has a lot of books on halakha. He was a very, very holy person. So Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, again, he has a yeshiva on Staten Island. He already, again, passed away almost 40 years ago. 86, Staten Island in New York. There's 5 boroughs in New York. Right? Staten Island is one of them.
Being heavily Jewish.
Well, the yeshiva's there.
I would have never guessed that the yeshiva.
Well, maybe they moved, but he used to be in Staten Island. I don't know.
Okay, got it.
This is in 86. I don't know. That he passed away. Anyway, so he says, I'm going to ask my rabbi. So the doctor says, what could a rabbi say? Come on. It's doctor's field. So he was very, very, curious. Says, can you take me to your rabbi? I want to see what the rabbi says. So he says, okay. So he tells him when he had an appointment and he goes to Rabbi Feinstein. So Rabbi Feinstein says, you know what? I can't. First of all, he cried for a long time. So the doctor said, I was really amazed. You know how it is when somebody's a doctor, God forbid one person passes away. So we really get scared. But if it happens more than once, a few times, you become, insensitive to it. That's the way it is. You hear about somebody, God forbid, passing away. Oh, you get scared. And then afterwards, I don't know, it's a very bad nature of human beings that we get used to the situation. So he says, I'm sure Rabbi Feinstein himself, he had tens of thousands of students that went through his organization, his yeshiva. And this guy was not one of the top students that he was really, really close with. He was a regular student that went through. The fact that he cried, it touched me a lot. So Moshe Feinstein told him, I can't decide yet. I have to go to sleep on it. Come back to me tomorrow. So he was even more curious whether I should come back. So go back tomorrow. And Moshe Feinstein tells him, I think you should do the surgery. But look what a holy man he was. I mean, this is actually where the faith of Jewish people comes. He says, once you're going to do the surgery, God willing, is going to be successful. You're a religious man. You're going to go to a synagogue. So it says you're going to answer many amens. When you go, they say Kaddish, they do the prayers, you answer amen. And it says every time you answer amen, the Gemara says that you actually create an angel that will protect you. You guys speak Hebrew by any chance? A little bit? Right? Okay. So the word amen, every Hebrew letter has a numerical value. Like Aleph is 1, Bet is 2. So if you add up amen, Aleph of amen is 1. The mem of amen is 40. So it comes out to be 41. Then nun is 50. 41 plus 50 is 91. Now the word malach, which means an angel in Hebrew, also the numerical value is 91. Let's do it again. Mem is 40. The lamed is 30. That makes it 70. The aleph is 1. That's 71. Chaf is 20. Makes it 91. So actually when the Gemara says if you answer amen, you create an angel, you actually see it in the numerical value, that they're exactly the same. So since you're going to answer many amens, so then you're going to have a lot of angels created who will protect you. And you're going to have a longer life. So the doctor said after the surgery, this man lived for 6 years. So since I saw that there's something beyond medicine, I decided to become religious. That's why I went to Israel. But again, the reason why I'm saying this, I've seen it many times myself that people go through difficulties and then, doctors give up hope. And unfortunately, many times they pass away. I'm not going to say no, but I've seen so many cases that, people gathered and they prayed. And then suddenly something happens. This guy wakes up or this woman wakes up and they live 3-4 years later on. So honestly, every good deed that we do, it can help. So anyways, that's one thing that I wanted to share with you regarding this week's Parshat. The other one, Kudi spoke about it years ago. Another thing that this Parshat talks about is the sin of gossiping. Okay? Actually, just a little introduction. Unfortunately, anytime you open up the news, it's all saying bad things about people, most of the time, right? Now, many times you also don't even believe in the truth. You just make up stories that are not true at all in the world of politics. So let's actually talk about, there is 4 levels in Lashon Hara, gossiping. Probably going to take most of the night. And actually is one of the greatest commandments that we should keep. Let's just go through the importance of it. Why is it important not to speak Lashon Hara? Then we go through different levels. The Chafetz Chaim, he writes down the main reason why the Jews are actually suffering in exile is because of the Avera of Lashon Hara, gossiping. Now, we are not God. How does he know that? It's not because, there's intermarriage. I mean, that's bad too. It's not because they do this type of a sin, that type of a sin. You think the main reason why we're getting hurt is because there is gossiping. We say bad about each other. So he proves it in a few places. The first one is from the Gemara and Yuma. The Talmud in Yuma talks about, Yuma means the day. It talks about Yom Kippur. Now, obviously, a big part of Yom Kippur was that the high priest used to bring the sacrifices in the temple. All right. So therefore, one of the discussions that they have there is about the temple. So over there, the Gemara says, why did the first temple get destroyed? So the Gemara says because they had three major sins being done during the first temple. And just as an introduction, if let's say a Jew's in a danger, they say, I'm going to kill you or do a sin, do something which is sinful. So the Torah says you're allowed to do the sin to save your life, because your life is more important than keeping the commandments. Actually, the Torah says the commandments are given the chai bahem. They should live with them. That means that you should save your life. God didn't give it to you to whatever cause death, but there's an exception. The three sins that no one should be tested with is if you get tested, we have to allow ourselves to get killed and not do the sin. One is idol worship. The other one is committing adultery. And the other one obviously is very, very logical. We can't kill somebody else to save our lives, right? So the Gemara learns that, the Talmud learns that from certain verses in the Torah regarding murder. So Rashi gives a very logical reason. Why does God tell you sin? Because your life is more important than the commandment. Now, if you're going to kill somebody else, you already made somebody die, and you did a sin too. So what's the point? You didn't get anything. The sin is done anyways, which is losing somebody's life. So you did a sin and somebody else's life was lost too. Or the language, the Gemara says, who says your blood is more red than the other guy? That's the expression the Gemara gives. But that's where Rashi explains it. So in the times of the first temple, they did these three sins. Okay, so the Gemara says, we understand why it got destroyed. But the Gemara asks, what about the second temple? During the second temple, the Jews were religious. The language of the Gemara is they studied Torah, they kept the mitzvot. If let's say somebody was in need, even they would help him. So how come all this greatness that they had did not help them whatsoever to stay in Israel? The temple got destroyed, millions of Jews got killed. So the Gemara answers, because they used to have hatred for no reason. They didn't have sufficient reason to hate each other, but they hated each other. Now the Chafetz Chaim adds, if it was just a hatred in the heart, that wouldn't be enough to warrant the destruction of the temple and millions of Jews getting killed. They actually brought their hatred verbally. They went and bashed each other, said bad things about each other. So from here, the Chafetz Chaim proves, even if Jews are religious, they keep everything. They keep Shabbat, they keep the Torah, they study the Torah, but if they gossip, all these good deeds that they do cannot protect them. So that's one proof that he has. That gossip is actually one of the worst. He brings a second proof. So this one, we're a little bit more familiar with the story. The Torah tells us the story of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, when he saw one day, an Egyptian was beating up a Jew. So Moshe went and saved the Jew, right? He killed the Egyptian, he saved the Jew. So how did he hide it? Nobody knew that he killed the Egyptian. Only the Jews that were around knew. So he actually buried him under the ground. You know what I'm saying? He buried him 6 feet under. And, whatever he says, don't say anything, but whoever was there, they kept quiet. The next day he goes and he sees actually somebody is raising his hand to hit another Jew. And one of them was the guy that he saved. Okay, that's what the Medrash says. The Torah doesn't say who this guy was. The Medrash says it's the guy that he was saving. So they got into a fight moment, raised his hand to hit him. And then he says, hey, you wicked one, why do you want to hit your friend? So then he says, what? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? I'm going to tell Pharaoh. Right? So the day before Moses saved his life, now that Moshe is scolding him, but he's hitting somebody else, so I'm going to tell Pharaoh. So they go and tell Pharaoh. So then Moshe Rabbeinu, actually, when he sees that, it says, Vayira Moshe. Moshe was afraid. Vayumar, and he said, Achen no da'adavar, not the thing is known. So he was afraid, and it says the thing is known. What was he afraid of? Simply learning. He was afraid for his life. And now it's going to be known that I killed the Egyptian. But the rabbis have a problem with it. And rabbis always make problems. You know that, right? They have a problem with the simple explanation. Because Moses, it says he didn't run away. It says after Pharaoh went after him, then he ran away. So if he was afraid of his life, he should have ran away right away before they told Pharaoh. Why did he wait till they went and told Pharaoh? That's what the Torah says. So it says Pharaoh decided to catch him, then Moshe Rabbeinu left, ran away. Actually, he actually did catch him. And they say that Moses was given to the hands of the executioner, but when they put a sword on his neck, a miracle happened and he didn't cut his neck. It came like a marble. How do we know that? Again, the rabbis make it's not clear in the Torah, because when he named his second son Eliezer, so it says Hashem be'ezri, because God was my help, and he saved me mecheref Pharaoh, from the sword of Pharaoh. What does it say? Saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. So he saved me from Pharaoh. So the fact that he adds the word sword, that means the sword was put on his neck, but he was saved from it.
Yeah.
Good.
Was it Moses and Pharaoh like brothers?
Oh, he was like his grandson. But once this happened, the Medrash says too much.
So he didn't just want to exile him from the beginning. He sent him to.
He straight wanted to kill him. See, don't forget, they knew Moshe is Jewish. They knew he's circumcised. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of people told him, get rid of Moses. But again, Bathsheba, the daughter, loved him. So Pharaoh said he's going to grow up to be a good Egyptian. But this time that he killed an Egyptian, that's too much. There's no way. Anyway, so because of this, the rabbis learned, by the way, I know that the girls are minority, but don't be afraid. Because Jews are minority too. And we're not afraid. Remember that. All right? They're not minority in this class, they're minority, but please come and bring other girls next time too. But anyways, going a little bit further. So the rabbis, the way they learn is that when it says Moshe was afraid, he was afraid that the Jews will never deserve to be saved. That's what he was afraid of. And he says, I studied all the books, because Moshe was very, very talented. He had access to the entire library of Pharaoh. Right? So he says, I studied all the history. What did the Jews do worse than other nations that are enslaved so cruel, in Egypt? Adultery, other nations are worse. Stealing, other nations are worse. So then he says that I understand now why they suffer so much. And that's what it says, the thing is known to me. I understand why they deserve, because they speak Lashon Hara. Right? So now, a little question. Other nations don't gossip, they gossip worse than us. So why? So again, the question comes back. So here the commentators say that really by other nations, they're not really united. They want to get certain goals. A person by himself can't get to his goals, so our ideas unite us, but they're not internally united. So if there's separation amongst them, they're anyway separated. I'm saying, like, look at, I always say this, like you look at Europe, right? There was a time, again, I'm not into politics that much. They wanted to get stronger, so they came with Euro. Because if they have one, I don't know, money, so then they're stronger against the US or against the world. Right? And then for a while it did, but then London, England, they saw that it's not worth it for them. So Brexit, whatever happened, they pulled out. So again, they're not really united. The idea united them. So then if you don't have the same idea, we say goodbye. Jews are not like that. We see it really. When one Jew in Israel is in trouble, it doesn't matter if you're Reformed, you're conservative, you're Orthodox, I don't know, whatever, believer, non-believer, no matter what, when a Jew is in trouble, it really pains us. Because the Jews really, their souls are united. So for them, when there is Lashon Hara and causes a separation, that's a real damage. So that's why the Lashon Hara that hurts us, we can't say it exists by other nations too. It doesn't, because the damage is not the same. So what do we see from here? So Moshe was afraid that Jews will never get saved. And it says, now it's known to me that they deserve to be slaves. What do we see from this story? That when there is gossiping amongst the Jewish people, not only that they go to exile, but they actually deserve to suffer in exile. You could live in exile but have a good life. You have, healthy, many children, thank God, a healthy husband, a healthy wife. Everything is good. Make money, no suffering, no diseases. But I think if there's actually gossiping, so that could cause suffering in exile too. And it's very tempting because we are very sensitive people. When somebody hurts us, so I want to vent with someone, I want to go out and say something bad about it. So these two things, these two proofs, the Chafetz Chaim brings, how bad is the sin of gossiping. So there are 4 levels in that. They're all bad. Don't think that some of them are good. They're all bad. But level number 1 is when I say something to you that concerns you. For example, let's say this is Morris, right? He's a Kohen, by the way. He could give us all blessings. So let's say Levi said something about you. So I come to you and I say, Morris, you heard what Levi said about you, or what he did against you? And I'm just saying it to make him bad, not because I want you to be protected. So that's called rechilut. Rechilut means, how do you explain that? It's a good word for it in English. Tail-bearing. And when somebody wanted to do something to you, I come and tell you the story. So the Gemara says that actually this is the lowest level, not the worst, the least bad, but it's bad still, of Lashon Hara. It actually could bring bloodshed too. What's the story behind it? So the story is, you know the story of King David, right? His father-in-law was King Shaul. Saul was his father-in-law, but Shaul didn't like his son-in-law. I guess in-laws problems goes back many years. Uh, but the truth is, the reason why I hated him because Shaul wanted his son to take over the kingdom. But because Shaul did a sin, so the prophet told him, you're not going to have it. It's going to go to somebody better than you. He didn't say who it was, but it looked like that King David has the qualities, and he was actually a general by Shaul. And he married Shaul's daughter. So he said, no, I have to get rid of my son-in-law. So my son will take over. So he tried to kill him, but he was never successful. Anyway, so one time King David was running away from Shaul. He goes to the city of Nov. In the city of Nov, that's where the temple was at that time. So as King David is running, he hasn't eaten anything for a couple of days. When he gets to the temple, he tells the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, I need food. Give me something to eat. Otherwise, I'm going to die. Now, the high priest had no idea that he's running away from Shaul. Actually, David did not say the truth. He said, I'm on a secret mission for my father-in-law, and I didn't have a chance to take food or a sword or anything. Could you give me some food? So he gave him food. And he gave him the food from the temple that was actually for the priests, because he had no other food to give him. And then he says, you know what? I even forgot to take a sword. Can you give me something to take with me? So again, do you have swords in the temple? The only sword that was in the temple was that huge one from Goliath, from Goliath. When he got killed, so they put the sword in the temple as a token of thanking God that giant got killed. So he gave that sword to him too. So there was actually one of enemies of David there, King David. His name was Doeg. When he sees that, he goes to the king and he says, did you see what this Kohen Gadol, his name was Achimelech, did? He actually fed your enemy and he gave him the sword too. I could just sit quiet. So Shaul investigated. He called Achimelech and he says, did you help my enemy, King David? He says, your enemy? He's your son-in-law. He says, who else is more trustworthy than your own son-in-law? He says that. And he says, and it's not the first time that I'm helping him. There are many times that I helped him. So he didn't even deny it. And actually was honor for him that he helped King David. But Shaul wasn't convinced, and he tells Doeg, make an army and go destroy the whole city of Nov. He didn't only kill the high priest, he killed all the priests. He didn't only kill the men, he actually killed the men, the women, the babies. One of our kings. And he said, I'm doing it so everybody's going to be afraid to rebel against him. So the Maimonides brings this story. So this was actually a case of Rechilut. What did Doeg do? He told Shaul, do you see what Achimelech did against you? He gave food to your enemy. So that brought bloodshed. So that's the lowest, the least level of Lashon Hara. Clear so far, guys? Yeah, please don't be afraid, because we're not going to talk Lashon Hara anymore. Anyways, the next level is, let's say if I say something bad about somebody, it doesn't even concern you. I just want to make him look bad. Imagine one day somebody goes to McDonald's and he buys a cheeseburger, right? Not only non-kosher meat, he eats it with cheese, right? Double sin. So then I'm going to come to Morris again. I said, Morris, hey, you know what's going on? You know what this guy did? This guy ate a cheeseburger, right? So then Morris is going to tell me, weren't you watching it? So it's under the supervision of a rabbi. So you're allowed to eat it, correct? Who that said? That was a joke you once said, I think.
That's a crazy loophole. Yeah, if I was like 15, 16, yeah, that's something that I would say about it.
Yeah, but it's for teenagers, not for adults, huh? But anyways, it doesn't even concern you. I'm just going around and saying this guy did a sin. So you know why this is worse? Because it doesn't at least the first case, the guy did something bad to you. It concerns you. Even though I'm not supposed to say it, but it concerns you at least. Here, just going around and saying, hey, this guy ate cheeseburger. What's my business to make him bad? Look bad. If I really care about him, I should go talk to him. Hey, you know what? Next time, when you could go to a kosher restaurant, they have fake cheese too, right? There is such thing, what do you call it? Tofu cheese. I know it tastes bad, but if you add some stuff to it, maybe it's going to taste as good. No, I'm very serious. If you care about him, save him. Don't go say bad about him. So that is called Lashon Hara, right? Gossiping. There is a level which is worse, because this, at least you're saying the truth. What if I say something which is completely false? So over there, this is called Motzi Shemra. I think in English it's translated slandering. You're not saying the truth. So that the sin is so great that you don't even have to forgive the guy on Yom Kippur. It says you should, be a pious person, but you don't have to. Let's give the logic why. Imagine one day, I see somebody, whatever, eating non-kosher food, and all I say is I saw him in the non-kosher restaurant eating the food, right? I made him look bad. I really feel bad, so I'm going to come back to you, Morris. Morris, I said, Lashon Hara. I'm not going to pick on you next week, only this week. So please come next week. So he says, Morris, I'm sorry. I said Lashon Hara about you. I said you ate non-kosher food. I'm going to ask you to forgive me. If I'm really sorry, you have an obligation to forgive me. Because I didn't say a false thing. What I said, it was true. But imagine if I said something that you never did. So whether halacha says you don't have to forgive me. Why? Because the lies that I said, people believed. They didn't see me coming to you and asking for forgiveness and say I lied. They don't know that. So they still believe the lie. That's why you don't have to forgive me. And I'm saying it's amazing, because usually it says forgive. When it comes to this, you don't have to forgive. Now the Gemara says there's actually a worse level. Those are called the masters of Lashon Hara. What does that mean? Usually we don't go around and speaking Lashon Hara. Somebody's name comes, something happens, it's fresh in my mind. Look, I said this guy did something bad. But have you guys seen, not here, only in China it happens, right? You see these old people that have nothing to do. So they go to to a park and they're playing backgammon. No, what happened in your neighborhood? What did your neighbors do? Like, every day from 4 to 6, instead of Mincha and Arvit, they go inside the park and they're playing and they're actually gossiping. It's not that something happens. That becomes part of their life. These guys are called masters of Lashon Hara. Right? Thank God in the educated, youth, these things don't happen. At least we hope so. So that the Gemara actually says the first 3 levels, whatever you gossip or you slander, after you get our punishment, you have a share in the world to come. But if somebody makes gossiping part of his life, daily life, so then he doesn't even have a share in the world to come unless he repents before he passes away. So these are the 4 levels of, gossiping Lashon Hara. So the question that comes up, why is this actually such a bad sin? I was one time teaching in Santa Monica College. So there was a guy that says, Rabbi, I don't understand. He's not even part of the 10 Commandments. Doesn't say the 10 Commandments don't gossip. It says other stuff. So this is not in the 10 Commandments. Why is it worse than all the other sins, as we explained? So the truth is, Chafetz Chaim asks this. And he writes in his book, he brings 3 reasons. Hopefully, by that time, either you finish, we see just a smaller thing. You guys want to go to Tel Aviv tonight? Is that okay? Okay, good, no problem. So, what? Because I have to go, I have to go to the Wells Fargo across the street. So we go there. Yeah.
No worries.
So the Chafetz Chaim brings 3 reasons. He says reason number 1, the reason why gossiping has the biggest damage. He says the way God judges us is like the court case down here. The truth is, why is there democracy? Right? There's a whole system. When somebody does something wrong, you have to arraign him, take him to court. You have the defenders, the prosecutors, is because that's the way God judges us. So that actually gave us the understanding to do it here in this world too. So when somebody does a sin, he doesn't get punished right away. We have to wait till Rosh Hashanah happens. And then you have all the angels that come and they testify about the good things that we did. And then the Satan or the Satan, whoever, that angel comes and he actually says about all the bad things that we did. And then God decides, which one prevails. Should he give him a good year or not a good year? God forbid not a good year, and God winning a good year. So then he says the only time the Satan is able to speak is only if the Jews condemn each other with the bad words. If the Jews would decide, I'm not going to say something bad about another Jew. So God says the Jews don't say bad about each other, so the Satan has no permission to accuse them on Rosh Hashanah. So basically, Chafetz Chaim says, if let's say all the sins that the Jews will do is only between them and God, but they actually love each other like brothers and sisters, no punishment with them. Because the Satan can't go and accuse us. The moment the Jews start accusing each other, or even if I don't accuse, but I listen, I say, I want to listen. Oh, yeah. So even listening is a sin. We learned this week's Parshat, you can't accept Lashon Hara either. So it's not only the guy that talks, he's sinning. But even if I listen, the Torah says clearly do not accept Lashon Hara. Just tell the guy, I don't want to hear it. It's not good for both of us to hear it. So in that case, when we accuse each other, we listen to each other's accusation, then the Satan gets the power to accuse us. By all the other sins doesn't apply. That's why Lashon Hara is the worst. I was actually one time a witness to this. When I was in yeshiva, this goes back in the 80s. I think it was 87. I was like 19, 87, 87. How old was I? I'm born in 66. So 87, I'm 21, right? Anyway, so 21, and was one of the boys, very, very good kid. He was 17 years old, and his name was Shmuli Chitrik. Very, very good boy, very fine boy. So that summer, when he went to a camp, it was in a 15-passenger van. There was an accident, the van turned over. Thank God they all survived, but this Shmuel Chitrik passed away. So that Shabbat, the Lubavitch Rebbe was speaking in his synagogue, and he said, really, he didn't deserve to die. Now, these are very, very strange words, I didn't know, but the Chafetz Chaim says the same thing too. He says, this guy didn't deserve to die. The only reason why he died, because there was baseless hatred, amongst the community that was in the Chabad community there. Because there was baseless hatred, so the first one that the Satan takes away is an innocent person. I would guess because it brings forgiveness, it brings, kapara, brings atonement when a righteous person goes for the generation. But again, the Chafetz Chaim says something similar. It says you might be speaking Lashon Hara here, but that gives power to the Satan to destroy something across the ocean from the Zohar. So that's reason number one, why Lashon Hara is so bad. Reason number two that he says is that actually when tragedies are supposed to happen, not supposed to happen, if they're going to happen, prayer is able to avoid it. Prayers are very, very powerful. But that's only if the power of speech is not contaminated. If, let's say, my mouth says bad words, or if I speak Lashon Hara, so then my power of speech is contaminated. So the words of Torah, the words of prayer that come out of my mouth, before they even get to heaven, it says they're caught by the powers of impurity. These are the religious words. Basically, it doesn't go to heaven. When I do other sins, it has nothing to do with the power of speech. Nothing to do with it. If I eat non-kosher food, not with my speech. If I don't keep Shabbat, nothing to do. But if I'm gossiping, right, so then that contaminates my power of speech. So my prayers go without fruition. That's one of the questions that I have. In the religious community, when somebody wants to become the what do you call it, the Chazan, the one that leads the prayers, they always ask, is he Shomer Shabbat? Does he keep Shabbat? Does he keep kosher? They never ask, does he speak Lashon Hara or not? Maybe because that's Lashon Hara too, I don't know. But honestly, if somebody goes around and gossips, his prayers are more damaged than somebody that doesn't keep Shabbat. I've never seen anybody in the religious community talking about it, but I never asked either. I should go ask, my teacher, honestly, how come you're not concerned about that? You're concerned, does he keep Shabbat? Does he deserve to be the leader of the community? So, not keeping Shabbat doesn't damage the prayers as much as, I don't know, somebody speaks Lashon Hara. So that's reason number two. And reason number three that the Chafetz Chaim brings is that, all the other sins don't happen that often. Let's say somebody doesn't keep kosher. How many times a day do we eat? Some people 5 times, but no, 3 times. In the United States, basically, half of the food is kosher. Unless, you want to have that, if you don't go to seafood, chicken and beef, right? All the tunas are kosher. All the dairy basically is almost kosher. The breads, so you could find so many kosher things. So let's say even if a person eats 3 times a day, he's not going to only buy non-kosher food. So he's going to eat once a day, twice a day non-kosher. Somebody that doesn't keep Shabbat, he's not keeping Shabbat once a week. But he's saying gossiping happens 10, 15 times a day. That's what the Chafetz Chaim writes down. So the sin itself is a very big sin. And it happens 10 or 15 times a day. It's not like the other things that, maybe once or twice a day. That's why the damage of it is a lot more. So again, this is what the Torah talks about in this week's portion. That it says, Lo tisa shem hashav, which means do not accept gossip. I know in the Torah there is no dots. You could read lotisa, lotasi, means do not give gossip to somebody else, not say bad things. I just wanted to share that with you. And the truth is that, we are sensitive people, but if you realize the unity amongst the Jewish people, if you know how united we are, maybe that will encourage us not to speak Lashon Hara. The Torah gives a commandment that you have to love a fellow Jew just like yourself, right? Famous question. Impossible to keep this. If you tell me you love a fellow Jew, okay, maybe I could love him, but love him just like yourself. It's impossible. right? People usually love themselves more. So because that, the Ramban says, how is it possible the Torah gives you a commandment that God knows you can't keep? So the Ramban has his own answer. The Nachmanides says, it really doesn't mean love him in your heart just like yourself. You could love yourself more. But the Torah means treat him like you want to be treated. Don't let your jealousy hold back anything from him. He needs a loan, give him a loan. Don't say, I want to be richer than him. So even though in my heart, I love myself more, but I could treat you like myself. It's not a commandment of the heart. But the Arizal comes and says, no, it really means literally, and we're going to go through two explanations, then we're finished. Explanation number one, it says regarding Jewish people, all of us together, we make one gigantic spiritual body. If you look at a person's body, you have the brains, the highest part, and then you have the toenails. But you need everything to be a complete person. If somebody even doesn't have his heels, he can't walk. He's a person that has a mane, has a problem. So it says, do not think that we are separate people. Our bodies are separated. But actually, each one of us is a part of a big spiritual body. Who's that big spiritual body? That's Adam Arishon, the first man. It says before Adam sinned, only Jewish souls were supposed to come from him. Then there was no trouble in the world. Only one religion. But again, because he sinned, so other souls came too. So before the sin that he has only souls of the Jewish people, he was only one human being, Adam, right? So whatever, he's spiritual head. From him, the leaders of the generations come. Simple Jews come from his foot. I'm talking about the neshama, the foot of his soul. So that's one thing. Actually, this is a Talmud also. It's not from the Arizal. It's not from Kabbalah. The Talmud says two things. One thing that he says, the Talmud is trying to encourage you not to take revenge. How could I not take revenge from somebody that hurts me? So the Talmud says, imagine you're playing whatever, doing some construction, and then you are having a hammer in your hands, and you strike your left hand by mistake. No one is going to take a hammer in his left hand and start striking his right hand. So according to the Talmud, one Jew is the right hand, the other Jew is the left hand. You're part of the same body, right? And then also the Gemara says before Adam was created, God showed him the future generations. That's in the Medrash. It's not in the Torah. And he says that, you see this leader, he's from your head. You see the other guy, that's from your heart. Now, we all know Adam was buried in Hebron next to Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So his head is there. What does the Medrash mean that this leader is your head? It means the head of his soul, not his body. That's what the Arizal says. Actually, the teacher of the Arizal, whose name was Moshe Cordovero, he brings a different analogy. He says that really in every Jew, you have a part of all the other Jews. So your soul, even though it's like one limb, but actually includes part of all the other Jews within you. And the way they explain it in Hasidic philosophy, you know what? It says in your hands, you have the life force of your feet. Why? Because the same blood circulates throughout the whole body. You don't have a different type of a blood in your foot. So the same life force that you have in your hand, in your feet, is in your heart and your brains too. So the same way also in every Jew, you have every other Jew, part of every other Jew is there. With this, they explain what the Talmud says, Jews are responsible, one for the other. If somebody does a mitzvah, helps all the other Jews. If somebody sins, damages all the other Jews. It's just like an illness. If somebody has an infection in one part of the body, that weakens the entire body. So because our souls are connected, when I do something wrong, it hurts you. When you do something good, actually helps everyone. So if you take this to our heart, honestly, so how can I say Lashon Hara about somebody else? Even if I have a brother that's not a good person, God forbid. Do I like people gossiping and saying bad things about him? I said, enough. It's my brother. I don't want to hear it. She's my sister. I don't want to hear it. So the Arizal tells us we have to look at every other Jew as he or she is part of us. If we really believe that, we internalize it, so it'll be a lot easier not to gossip against them. Anyways, hopefully we had a good class. If you guys